So our last session, we had guests joining us to share their knowledge and expertise. So this morning we are joined by Rosalind Harmon. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna read her bio so we can know who we are talking to this morning. Rosalind Harmon brings a distinctive blend of leadership, vision, and expertise to the Dispute Resolution Center, DRC, nestled in the historic Rondo neighborhood of St. Paul, Minnesota. As the pioneering community mediation organization in the state of Minnesota, DRC specializes in restorative practices, restorative justice and diversion, mediation, healing circles of support, and youth development. As a veteran in this field and a driving force as a bridge builder, she has impacted lives through developing and overseeing restorative justice initiatives. Her contributions extend across the development, implementation, and oversight of restorative justice curriculum, programming, budgets, fundraising, networking, trainings, and strategic planning. Rosalind's work emphasizes creating systemic change using a restorative framework to repair harm in communities, organizations, and businesses. Her approach, focused on trauma-informed practices and social emotional learning, has earned her recognition from the city of Minneapolis, honoring Black Girl Magic, to celebrate and uplift the voices of Black women and prestigious awards, including Minneapolis/St. Paul Business Journal's 50 Black Leaders, 2024 Black Woman Entrepreneur, Sweet Potato Comfort Pies, Batter That Matters, Bethel University's 2023 President's Award, and Team Women's 2022 Wavemaker Award. Notably, she recently made history as the first person of color and Black woman to become mayor of Golden Valley. Welcome, Rosalind. Thank you for joining us this morning. I made you a co-host so you're able to share screen if needed, but thank you. We're glad to have you.
So much. It's awesome to be here. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Lana. And I am going to ask for participation and engagement. And so feel free to use the chat or speak out when you want to. And I'm just going to share my screen. And we'll get started here. So, loading device. So I just want to tell you a little bit about DRC, where we do restorative justice and diversion, and we focus on restorative practices and circle trainings, as well as civil and family mediation, healing community circles of support, and youth development. And we're dedicated to restoring and healing communities by promoting the constructive resolution of conflict through open communication and shared decision making. And that's why I'm here to help you navigate conflict restoratively. So we have an amazing 50 minutes together with tools that I will give you. And this is just quickly our team, me, Jonathan, and Gustavo, and then looking for a youth development person come this summer. And this is our extended team, Respect, Emily, and Amber, interns from Bethel University, who we have a great partnership, and Amber is our housing mediation coordinator. Just quickly, I just want to know who you are. So if you could just say your name, and if you had a theme song, what would your theme song be? So go ahead and write that in the chat, and I'll just tell you what mine would be today is because I'm just feeling kind of, I don't know, I just feel like I'm every woman, Shaka Khan, right? Just feeling good about life, right? So just feel free to put it in the chat how you're feeling. And I'm going to stop sharing because I can't see the chat. Let's see here. Yep, here I can. So, oh, I don't see anything in the chat though. Are there things in the chat? Can someone just tell me some songs that people have?
There's, okay, there we go.
Oh, keep on moving, Claire. Soul to soul. Love it.
My name is Nashana, and my theme song would be by Leanne Womack's "I Hope You Dance."
Love it. Thank you. Yep, and feel free to use the microphone too. Chatter mic. Tanika says, unstoppable. All right. Love it, love it, love it. Some of you probably have to think about it, and that's okay. So, my power, Beyonce, love it, love it. Sacred space, that's Leanna, love it. Well, just keep them coming. And I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So when we do restorative, when we talk about how to navigate conflict, there's some things to keep in mind, some guidelines. And oftentimes when we're sitting in circle or sitting in spaces, we like to, one, respect ourselves, the talking piece, because when we come together to do restorative work, we typically have a talking piece, whether the circle keeper, which today I'm the circle keeper, will have the talking piece, or you bring something that's special to the space that is important to you. And this just helps to break the monotony of the disagreement, the argument, the conflict, and just build relationship, because that's what navigating conflict is all about. It's really about do we know one another, our morals and values, and why we think the way we think and move the way we move and talk the way that we talk. One is to also speak with authenticity, to come from a place of love and understanding. Listening is so important, and we'll talk about that a lot today as one of the main tools for navigating conflict, as well as speaking with respect, because there's times when our tone, the things that we say, can really impact um, just those around us, especially in conflict. We also want to listen with respect, because there are things that might be said that we don't agree with, but in spaces of trying to be restorative when there is a disagreement, it's important to listen, because you may not agree, but it's okay to agree to disagree, right? And then you want to be in the space, like not be distracted, both physically and mentally. And in some spaces where there's conflict, it's important to honor confidentiality. We don't want to be gossiping about who said what to other people who weren't even a part of what was going on. And oftentimes that happens. And that makes things, trust and all of that, even more dishonorable. And lastly, demonstrate empathy. Any questions on how we set up our guidelines? And because I can't see the chat, just feel free to just talk freely with your mic if you have any questions. I'm okay with that.
And Rosalind, we can Liana and I can like prompt you come off chat if there's something in the chat too. Happy to help.
Thank you. Love it. Thank you. So I want to talk about the brain a little bit, because once we understand a little bit about our brain, we can handle what's going on with conflict. So understanding how the brain works and functions is key to how we communicate internally as well as externally with others. Our brain also encompasses our personality, which we will learn more about in a little bit. But many, many centuries ago, right, before language was understandable, we communicated based on survival. So this was hunting, and hunting with aggression, with fight or flight. And we had to kill our food to eat it, to defend our families from being killed. And we needed the adrenaline from anger to save and protect us. So, however, in today's time, we do the same thing. When we get upset, when we have conflict, we want to protect ourselves, right? And so we get this adrenaline rush, but that adrenaline can also harm us if we're not careful with how to manage ourselves in the conflict. Now, I am not a medical doctor by any means. I am a mental health practitioner, but and I'm not going to go in depth with the brain and how that works. But we do what we have, and I'm also an educator, so I like to break things down where a third grader can understand. But we do have what's called our front and back brain thinking. And that's where our amygdala is. And when we go from 0 to 100 really quick, our amygdala can get what we call hijacked, right? Just woo, okay? And when we talk about our back brain controls our movement, our senses, our irrational thinking. And our back brain also takes us into what is fight mode. Okay. And this is where our emotions of frustration, anxiety, stress, fear, and anger comes from. And our brain is very fragile. And when we are upset and frustrated while communicating with others during conflictual situations, we tend to make bad decisions. And so that's why we end up regretting the things that we say when we just lash out with our words, or we may have regret. But it's important, though, to kind of come from the front brain, because that's where we're thinking rationally, and that's where we can be calm, and that's where we can breathe as well. So I just want to hear from you all. When you get upset, where is it that you feel it in your body? Where do you feel it?
Nashana said my chest.
Ah, yep. Anywhere else?
The stomach,
The stomach.
get headaches,
Say that again.
headaches.
Yep. Headaches. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the issues that we deal with are in our tissues, right? And so when we're in conflictual situations, high anxiety, frustrated, right, there's a lot that can happen. And you all shared some really good ones. Increased heart rate. This is huge when you talk about your chest, because this is where heart attacks and heart disease are more likely to come about when we're dealing with a lot of inner emotions and anger, and we're not releasing that. Another one is increased blood pressure, having high blood pressure. And sometimes when we're in conflictual situations, we can feel our chest beating really, really fast. That's our blood pressure going up. And sometimes we need to just woosah to come down, right? This is very, very interesting. We can have what's called our IQ decreases. And studies show that when we go from 0 to 100 really quick, or when we get easily frustrated, that we lose about 30 points of our IQ. It goes down. And that's what takes us to that back brain. Also, our muscles tighten up. And that's, I get that a lot, where my muscles will get super tight in my lower back, my legs, my neck, and that hurts. Digestion issues, where you just mentioned, in the stomach, that can affect us when we're holding on to all of these things, as well as our voice getting louder. It's amazing when people who really don't have much to say, or they're very soft spoken, when they get upset, it's like, roar, right? Their volume just really, really gets off. And then there's the adrenaline boost, and that's the FNF, blah, 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 blah. The epinephrine, right? And that's the big boost of energy. And sometimes for those of us who have allergies, we have to use the EpiPen to get that adrenaline going, to kind of diffuse the reaction, right? Well, when we get that enough epinephrine in our bodies, sorry, I'm just having a tongue-tied day today. It's one of those things where we get just high energy, right? And we're just pumped and we're moving all over the place. So some people who get frustrated, right, they move like this and they talk like this, or they gotta, move around. And then that's that adrenaline. And then once they calm down, it's almost like they've been like drunk or high, right? It just comes down really, really quickly. Increased breathing. We see that a lot when we're frustrated, but it's also important that when we're frustrated to breathe to help calm us down. Liver shutdown, that's a huge one. With our immune system, that's how illnesses come into play. Our reproductive can shut down. I know for me, when I have very high stressful situations from my past life, being an educator, it was very, very hard for me to get pregnant. And I deal with infertility issues. But I think a lot of women who cannot get pregnant sometimes, it's because it's high stressful situations. And then once they're calm and let it go, their bodies, it's like it happens for them sometimes, right? And then our eyes dilate, or we can even have a blackout. So sometimes when we're under a lot of stress, we can see the light because our eyes can get bigger, or we can just totally black out, do some harm, and then wake up and we don't even know what the heck we did. We just see the harm that's been done. Any questions on the issues and how it impacts our bodies? Or are there any on here that you may deal with that I didn't share when dealing with conflict? Okay.
How about getting exhausted at the end of it all?
And exhaust?
Exhausted, like,
Yes.
no, after being so hyper with the anger and moving around and talking and all that, but when you finally come down, it's like you are out of the energy and you just have to sleep, nap, whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like to call that, because I think, like me, you all are probably very busy in the spaces that you are in. And compassionately fatigued is real. To be compassionately fatigued because you love, you're passionate about the work that you're doing, but you're exhausted, right? Mentally, physically tapped out. And that can also impact the way that we feel. It can impact our sleep. It can impact all of that. Thank you. Any others?
From the chat, Amaranthia and Claire said, yep, experience a lot of these things, including exhaustion, as Aini said. We both have an anxiety disorder, so know how it feels.
Yes, yes. So it's so important when dealing with conflict. The most important thing, you cannot let it affect your peace, right? And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But as we enter in to those things, I want us to talk a little bit about us and each other and our personalities. Because once we get a better understanding of personalities and who we're dealing with, it can help us on how to move, how to talk to this person when in conflict. So this is called the personality communication styles. And when you know how different pairings interact, right, in long-term working relationships, or even in personal, intimate relationships, this can help you predict and diffuse potential conflict, right? So I'm going to have you pick a number, 1 to 4. And based on this number, 1 to 4, which would you most want to avoid? So in the space that you're at today, because you could want to avoid all 4 of these, but I just want you to pick one on what you most want to avoid right now today, okay? 1 would be criticism and ridicule, if that's something you want to avoid. 2 would be hassles and rejection. 3 would be pain and stress. 4, unimportance and meaninglessness, meaning you don't feel important right now, or just nothing just doesn't make sense right now. So 1 to 4, pick one, and then I want you to put your number in the chat. Number 1, if you want to most avoid criticism and ridicule. 2, if you want to avoid hassles and rejection. 3, pain and stress. Or 4, unimportance and meaninglessness. Leanna, will you let me know when everyone has a number?
I think we're waiting on one more person.
Okay. So how many people chose one, criticism and ridicule?
Just me.
Just you. That's okay. All right. Then your personality style, just and this could change, right? It doesn't mean that this is it right now, right? Is control. And that's not a bad thing. Okay. Who picked two, hassles and rejection? Anyone?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
This is Jennifer.
All right, Jennifer. So your personality style is pleasing. Who picked pain and stress?
I did.
I did as well.
Okay. So if you want to most avoid pain and stress, your personality style is comfort. And did anyone pick unimportance or meaninglessness?
Aini,
All right, thank you. Yours would be superiority. Now, looking at this, again, these are not bad things. This is just your personality style. And when you know people's personality styles, as well as yours in the state that you're in right now, it helps you to understand how to move with that person. So if you're trying to avoid criticism and ridicule, your personality style is control. And when you are one who likes to control your surroundings and everything, you try hard to control yourself as well as your environment. If you're a pleaser, you try hard to please others. If you're a comforter, you just want to feel comfort, right? You give comfort, you want to feel comfort back. If it's superiority, you're competitive. You want to be at the top of your game, okay? For criticism and ridicule that you want, if that's what you want to avoid and your personality style is controlling, your strongest talents, okay, are you're a leader, you're organized, you're productive. And I'm sure we're all leaders, right? For a pleaser, you're friendly, considerate, not aggressive. For a comforter, easygoing, peacemaker, undemanding. And for superior, very knowledgeable, spice, and idealistic. Okay. Now, when stressed, someone who has control will overuse their strengths and then they'll start to feel anger. Okay. Because they can't control what's happening with themselves as well as with their environment. For a pleaser, when stressed, it's anxiety. Okay. For a comforter, it's weariness, that exhaustion. And for one who walks in superiority, it's depression. And again, these are not bad things. This is just how we can feel in the moment. And this is how others can kind of feel us when we're trying to avoid these things. So here's the result when you're around people. If you're controlling, you can become more social distant from the person that you are in conflict with. If you're a pleaser, you can kind of lose a sense of yourself because you're so worried about making sure everybody else is okay that it's like, what am I doing for me? Okay, that's self-care. Comforter, you're so flippin' tired, it's hard for you to produce effectively, right? And for someone who's superior, you're kind of now feeling like you're doing too much, you're overburdened, okay? Now the positive and negative reaction from others, especially those who you're in conflict with. They may rely on you, or they may feel challenged by you if you like to have a sense of control. For a pleaser, people around you, they might feel pleased or exasperated, because if you're constantly trying to make sure that they're okay, they might be like, just chill out, right? And it's not a bad thing, but sometimes we can overcompensate. And for comforters, sometimes for people they can feel good and at ease because you're giving that comfort to them. But then if you're giving too much comfort, they can get annoyed. And then for someone who walks in superiority, a positive reaction, they can feel respected by you, or they can feel less than. Any questions on these and where you're at right now with these? Do you see any commonalities right now?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Can these differ depending on where you're at in your life or particular?
Absolutely. So today, it could be pain and stress that you want to avoid. And then in a month, you might be trying to avoid criticism and ridicule, right? So with people, we change. With our emotions, it changes. But we also just have to recognize the personality and what we're dealing with and what they're trying to avoid most, and why they do what they do sometimes. Any other questions? For a long time, like years ago, especially when I was in schools, I was so pleasing. My personality style was pleasing, right? Now that I'm in this new role as mayor and I'm working all the time, I'm exhausted, my body is in pain. Man, my personality style right now is comfort. I just want to feel comfortable and I need peace, right? So it changes. It changes. But I just wanted to give you a deeper understanding of how we don't really think about other people and what their personality is or what they're dealing with, because we're so caught up in how they're making us feel and how we're feeling by being around them, especially in conflict. So that now moves us into underlying trauma. Underlying traumas, so as humans, we all have trauma, and trauma that unfortunately impacts us internally that we don't realize may come out unintentionally while communicating with others. So now that you know your personality style as you just today, right, where you're at today, which will change from day to day. Looking at the types of trauma that may impact effective communication within your spaces is really, really key. So again, when conflict arises, right, we're coming from that back brain thinking and we're experiencing core hurts, such as feeling disregarded, feeling accused, feeling guilty, devalued, rejected, defective, unlovable. And then our fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode, and fawn is a new one that's been added. And that means we keep someone happy just to neutralize the conflict. So we try to please just to keep them from going haywire, right? Or getting upset. So that's fawn. And so here's some traumas that just as people, humans, we bring into a space, But then there's the trauma that we bring when we are working with one another. So when we come into a space, we all have our physical and mental traumas that we bring. People may not know it, right? But they're there. Disabilities, injuries, disease, which I like to break it down as dis-ease in our bodies, mental diagnosis, hunger, stress, drugs, substance, alcohol disorders, right? And with some people, we don't know that this is what they're going through, right? You don't know that I'm, dealing with sleep deprivation right now or that I'm in chronic pain. Because when we show up in spaces, we like to perform, but oftentimes we are bringing in our traumas. Some other traumas that we bring in personally into spaces: historical, generational, divorce, broken relationships, abandonment, early childhood trauma, grief and loss, financial hardships, taking care of people, right? So each and every one of us on our call is dealing with the personal trauma that we may or may not know about. And that could impact the way that you're even showing up today. It could impact the way that you show up when you come to work, all of those things. Now, as employees, or the work that we do as independent contractors, entrepreneurs, supervisors, whatever in the workplace, there's trauma. So now, not only do we have our personal traumas that we're bringing in, but then there's trauma of work performance. Are you being micromanaged? Are you, trying to balance work and life, boundaries, benefits? Maybe there's layoffs happening, right? Maybe you're dealing with a supervisor or someone, a colleague, who tells you what to do versus asking you what to do, right? Or maybe you're showing up in a space where you're trying to be accepted. All of these things can weigh heavy on us. And it can also, right, if we're not careful, by recognizing these things, right, we can come into these spaces and it can, we don't know that we're projecting these things, and it could really rub someone the wrong way, right? By our nonverbals, our body language, our face, how we're feeling, all of that. I'll give you an example. When I was in education, I did restorative chats because I did coaching my last stint with Osseo School District. And a lot of teachers, right, bumped heads with students. Well, there was one teacher, and he was always very, very rude, mean to students. They would always come to me saying, I don't know what his problem is. He's always angry, upset. Well, I met with him and he broke down, just broke down crying because his wife had cancer and she was dying. And for him to show up at school every day, it was very hard to deal with the students and their attitudes because he didn't have anyone that he could talk to about what was going on in his home life. And it was just so much because he was a caretaker, and also he's a man. So he felt like he couldn't embrace his vulnerabilities. So he brought it to school. He brought what he was feeling, those emotions, to school, and it impacted his relationships with the students where he was lashing out. So it's so important that we understand that everyone is going through something. Then we have trauma just from the culture of the spaces that we're in. And that could be management, turnover, DEI stuff, being overworked, underpaid, the power hierarchy, right? Budget cuts, gossip, personality clashes, disruptive behavior, toxicity, all those things. Are there any on here that you might deal with or that you've seen that I have not touched on?
I don't know where this fits, but the stress of traveling to work.
Mm,
Winter,
winter.
a storm, and you hardly made it to work.
Yes.
And then you made it to work, and a lot of people didn't show up because there's a storm and there's no one to babysit their kids, so they are home. And you that managed to show up has to do all the work, and the customers don't understand that.
Yes. Yes. And that impacts, right? It impacts everything. It sure does. Thank you for that. Any more?
Yeah, in the chat. Oh. In the chat, Amarantha says, I have seen this with lots of people and have experienced it myself. This is a great list.
Thank you. Thank you. So knowing our personality styles and then the traumas that we bring into spaces as well as others. Now let's get into some tools of communication. And we all know these, right? But I really want to work with you on restorative tools. But I just want to give you a refresher of the communication tools of just staying focused when dealing with someone in a conflictual situation. Listening is so important. Responding to their criticism with empathy, right? So don't repay evil with evil, right? If they come at you sideways, right? Kill them with kindness. It's hard, but it works. Take responsibility, right? Be accountable. Use I statements. So often we always say, you did this. Why did you? Why did you not? Right? By taking personal accountability speaks volumes, or by saying we can work together, or how about if we navigate this versus you do it, right? By taking on a we or an I stance, it comes off as though you want to build the relationship, you want to find resolve. Find alternatives and compromises if you agree to disagree, right? How can you meet in the middle? And then sometimes you got to take a break. If the conflict is just too high, people are not in the space to talk it out, pause and say, look, we're not in a space right now. We need to revisit this, and make sure you revisit it, because if you don't, that stuff is going to fester. And then when they do something else, not only are you going to bring up what they just did, but you're going to bring up the stuff that wasn't resolved in the past. Okay. And then they're going to be looking at you like, what the heck? That was months ago. But because you didn't deal with it and you didn't go back to revisit it, it's sitting there and it's going to come out. Okay. Communication is so key, so key. And for so many of us, we are conflict avoidant, and we shouldn't be, because conflict can really strengthen and elevate relationships if you do it properly. It's a great thing to have conflict, but it's how we have it that matters, right? Lashing out, getting loud, yelling, right? Screaming, smacking the lips, doing all this, like sometimes it doesn't help the situation. So some restorative tools that I want to talk about is just show that you're paying attention. Actively show the person, eye contact, but show that you're listening as well, okay? Be a fair witness, because when we listen, we connect more. Defer judgment. And what do I mean by that? When people are angry and they come at you and you're like, what the heck is your problem, right? Acknowledge that they're angry, because sometimes they just want you to acknowledge that they're not okay. Okay. So if someone comes at you, don't ignore it. Acknowledge, like, okay, I see that you're upset right now. And once you acknowledge it, don't take it personally. I have to say that again. Don't take it personally, because again, them coming at you, it's not about you. It's probably those underlying traumas that they're dealing with that they're not talking about, and it's coming at you. But it's really not about you. So don't take it personally. And third, always remember that anger stems from pain and hurt. Hurt people, okay? Then you want to practice, you want to watch your tone and your nonverbals, and we'll get into that. But you want to practice dispositional mindfulness. And what does that mean? You want to have intention. So you want to choose, pick your battles, right? You also want to have attention. You want to be present in the moment, but you in your thoughts, but it's also your attitude, being kind, curious, and non-judgmental. Because we can judge people really, really quick when they show us some nonverbals, when they show us, right, some tone, all of that. We could be quick to jump to some conclusions when we really don't know what's going on. So watch your tone and nonverbals. So be willing to forgive and not necessarily seeking an apology from someone, because oftentimes we want an apology. And as grown folks, we may not get an apology. And if we don't get an apology, you have to let it go, but forgive self. And because when you harbor all of that someone else has done to you or what they're doing to you, again, it's going to mess with your peace, and it's going to mess with your mind, your thinking, all of that. Okay. Any questions on the restorative tools?
No questions, but I would like to make a comment. I kind of, have some experience with what you're talking about as far as like the whole conflict resolution and stuff like that. I recall some years ago where when I was in college, I'd worked for this lady, this woman. She was, a black woman like me, and my mother so happened to pull up one day outside of the educational institution and said A out the window, just A, just yelled A. And the lady looked and turned and said, well, that's country, And I'm like, that's rude, that's disrespectful. What are you talking about? Well, she
Right.
didn't say anything. Well, she didn't say anything, And I was like, that's my mother, that's my I got angry, I kind of boisterous with her, and then only when I said that was my mother did she change her tone. And well, I didn't mean it like that. And I'm just like, this is some BS, lady. Like, come on now. Like, I really internalized that whole situation, and I was looking for an apology, which I did not get. And since I didn't get an apology, I became this very passive, aggressive, low communication, low vibrations, just individual.
Yeah.
Like, I gotten so upset, so angry that, now mind you, I'd worked for this lady, and I just couldn't even continue to do the work. So what happened is she eventually had to let me go, because I was just so upset. I didn't voice anything to her, I didn't say anything to her, and I just kind of let it go on. And a couple years later, somebody had brought up to me, what happened between you and so and so. And while I was still at this educational institution here in St. Paul, I just snapped off. I said, my mother was called country. I felt so disrespected. I felt humiliated and everything else. And I began to go on this tirade of calling this lady all types of names and sellouts and coons and everything else. And so I kind of have the same, reflection on that to this day. When I bring it up now, it kind of still gets me upset too. And I had kind of, said what I said to her, and I guess she had went back and told that lady what I said, and she had seen me in like the hallway. She like turned around and walked the other way because I just I mean, her husband was of the Caucasian persuasion, so I had made some racial epithets as well, probably towards her, which that kind of But yeah, so it was just a whole situation of, communication and apologizing and stuff like that. So I agree with what you were
Hmm.
saying, and I have some thoughts on that. So that's
Thank you for sharing.
all I wanted to comment on.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank
And
you.
real quickly, looking back at when she made that comment, right? How is there anything that you would have done differently to kind of not get so upset, to just talk with her in a way to get her to understand that what she said was off the chain?
I was in my early 20s at that time, probably about
Mhm.
2021. I had probably didn't develop any of those skills myself at that time. I can reflect on and attest to that. At that point in time, there was probably in my mind, I'm just like,
Yeah.
you done disrespected my mama. Like, come on now.
Right,
I ain't
right.
I ain't trying to hear nothing you got to say. Get up on my
Right.
face. I'm
Your amygdala was hijacked. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and all I really looked forward to solve that situation was a formal apology. That's what a simple, hey, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. And
Yeah.
I didn't get that. And that also in turn like made me just have some very, very like dark thoughts, like
Yeah.
so yeah, I can
Thank
attest to that
you.
as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, Claire.
Hi, this is actually Amaranthia.
Oh,
Um,
Emery. Thank you.
yeah, so Claire's my mom, and
Okay.
we were just having a conversation about the forgiveness section, and something I remembered was my mom is a survivor of domestic violence, and so she's had a lot of times where she couldn't get closure. And
Mm,
I've also experienced trauma from bullying and emotional abuse. And I found that um, we would have this conversation about forgiveness, like finding, forgiving the person, even if, you're not going to get the closure from them. And I always felt uncomfortable with that. Like, well, how am I supposed to forgive someone who's caused me harm? Um, and then one day in my teens, I learned I saw this post somewhere online that talked about forgiving yourself. And then so sometimes
yourself.
you're not gonna get that um apology, or you're not gonna feel comfortable forgiving someone who's been abusive.
Mm,
Um and when I learned that, we started having this conversation about it, and we said, yeah, you know what? That makes more sense, because when you forgive yourself, it's about forgiving yourself for the anger, for the emotions, for the resentment that you felt around this person or situation that has occurred. And um once I started doing that, I started feeling better, and I started recognizing, like, oh, okay, now I could kind of move forward from this situation, because now I'm acknowledging the harm that it has caused me, and I'm acknowledging that I'm not going to be able to get, hear sorry from this person. And I just found that it was comforting for me. And my mom
mm,
started kind of doing that too, because got, you never got an apology from your family, and
mm,
her parents have passed. Her whole nuclear family has passed. And so that was very important for us to come to terms with my experiences and her experiences and experiences we've had together.
And to understand that sometimes you just not
yeah.
get closure.
Yes.
It's not gonna
Yes.
happen. You just gotta.
No.
Sometimes the person who's caused harm, their ego is so large,
Mm-hmm.
never going to be
Mm-hmm.
humble enough to be like, you know what, I hurt you. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and then when you've experienced the trauma, sometimes you harm yourself, because you start doing behaviors that are really unhealthy to yourself and to others. And so that helped me start figuring out how to start addressing those behaviors.
That's good.
So yeah, I just I think that's something that people don't always think about. Sometimes they feel like, oh, I have to forgive this person who really caused this harm. It's like, well, maybe start with forgiving yourself first.
Forgiving yourself. That's right. Because, and especially in this work of restorative and the work that we do at DRC with diversion work, where people have committed crimes in their community, they've committed harm, and we do the circle process with the community that they harmed. And it's 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 incredible because oftentimes people want an apology.
Mhm.
And I have to say, the fact that they showed up, even if they showed up to the circle, for some people, it's like, this is my way of saying sorry, although I can't say sorry. I showed up.
Right.
But resolution lies in releasing the urge to punish, which can never compensate for our pain, right? But it can only add fuel to the fire if we take it down a spiral that leads us to not having peace. Because at the end of the day, and I can't say this enough, it's about our peace.
Yes.
And so when we take that first step of, forgiving self, and even, writing a letter, if the person has been gone for a long time, because I've met with clients who are still angry and the person who hurt them is dead, right? Writing a letter, burning it, right? Writing everything that you wanted to say, doing an exercise where you're, pretend that I'm that person and just get it out, right? There's so many ways. But when it comes to conflict, right, an argument takes two people. But if it's toxic and it's unhealthy, you got to let it go so you can heal forward. And I like to say heal forward and be your best self.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what my mom did. She just burned. I think I
I
told
had,
her.
I had a,
You
I-
wrote a
I-
letter.
yeah, when I realized what was going on inside, I wrote down, I learned about the word resentment, and
Yes.
I realized I had a lot of resentment. So then I went and I wrote down everything underneath resentment, and I came to Amaranthi and I said, oh, I feel that I need to bury this in order for me to feel better. And she said, no, Mom, if you bury it, it's still gonna be alive. You need to burn it. And so I came up with this thing called burn your resentments. And I
Yes.
wrote about it, and so we had a little ritual where I took that note that I did, and I burnt sage, and I meditated, and I did my prayers and everything. And as I was burning it, I chanted and meditated, and I poured it water and let it go down the sink. And after that, I began to feel better, and the hole
Yeah.
I had inside that I used to feel I had an open cavity in my center, it began to close. And now it's pretty much closed because from that moment, I just began to heal. So yeah, so I understood I'm never gonna get closure about what happened, but I can do something to restore myself. And that's why I
Beautiful.
did. I burnt my resentments.
Beautiful. Love it. I have 5 minutes left, and I really want to leave you with this is a activity that I was hoping we could do, but I'm going to skip it because I really want you to utilize the question rule for emotional intelligence. When we are in conflict, or when we know that conflict is about to arise, there's 3 things that we have to ask ourselves. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said right now? And am I the one to say it? Oftentimes, when we're dealing with people who are constantly getting to us, getting on our nerves, right? It's almost like we're on a roller coaster. Like, why is it that we keep doing this dance, right? Are you hearing me? Are you listening to me? And oftentimes we just get so upset. So I'm going to give you an example. So just yesterday, so in our office, you know, it's we're small, and I'm very clean. I like the office to be clean. And so, you know, we have some staff who just, you know, they're so busy that they just do what they want to do. And it's like, all I ask is just clean. So there's days when I'm exhausted, right? And I get that staff have been, you know, they're exhausted too. And I'll see something, for example, bathroom, like bathroom just really gets under my skin. And oftentimes, 90% of the time, I won't say anything because I know that I'm tired, they're tired. And if I say something, attitudes are gonna start, you know, forming. And I'm at a place where my tone isn't going to be the best. And so I have to tell myself, okay, Rosalind, do I need to say something about this right now? First of all, do I need to say something? And do I need to say it right now because I'm tired, they're tired, we've all had a long day? Is this something that I can just clean up real quick without pointing out, hey, who did this and why? And then because I feel like I'm always the one who says it, it's like, shoot, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. So we had an instance where someone left their dishes in the sink. And so another person cleaned it up. And I'm like, why are you cleaning it up? Because we keep saying to the staff person, clean up after yourselves. And they really struggle with doing that. And so I was actually going to call this staff person, like, you know, what's up? And as I was thinking about doing it, my other staff person said, you know what? I'm going to let that person know that's not cool that this person is washing their dishes. So it's like sometimes it doesn't need to come from me. And so I'm so happy because he was thinking it. And maybe if he says it to him, it'll register better. Because sometimes when people are hearing us constantly say things to them all the time in conflict, this could be in relationships, mother daughter, partner relationships, parenting, right? Where we're telling our child time and time again, clean up your room, clean up your room, clean up your room. And then grandma comes over and says, child, why ain't your room clean? And then all of a sudden they clean it up. And then as a parent, it's like, wait a minute. So you're going to clean up your room because grandma said clean up your room, but I've been saying this to you so many times. That's because our voice, our tone, everything, they're so used to it, it doesn't work anymore sometimes. The same with conflict, right? So when we're in conflict and we see it happening, ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? And am I the one to say it? Because sometimes it may not be the right time, and I may not be the right person to get you to understand that you are really making people uncomfortable, your actions are uncomfortable, and it's toxic. Does that make sense? Yeah. So does this need to be said? Doesn't need to be said right now. And am I the one to say it? Because sometimes we just need to shut up and hopefully someone else sees it and that person will hear it from them because we're constantly coming at this person. Okay. So
Hey, Rosalind, I just
yeah.
wanted to, we are willing to give some more time if you want to stay a little
Oh,
longer and share. We are
oh,
definitely doing that.
okay.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Well, let's do this exercise then, just really quick. It's called the O exercise, and it's all about tonality, right? Because as we know, we've always heard that rhyme, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But I like to say sticks and stones will break my bones and words will forever hurt me because words do hurt. And when we show up and we say things to people, our body language, our tone, it hurts, right? And so here's the exercise. just oh. And I just want you, I'm going to say a word, and then I want you to basically tell me that word in the tone that I'm asking you to give it to me. So someone say, oh, in shock. Leanna's laughing. Say, oh, like you're in shock.
Oh,
Okay. Say, oh, like you're happy.
Oh, okay.
Good. Say, oh, like you're questioning.
Oh,
There
oh,
you go. Say, oh, in anger.
oh, okay.
Mhm. Say, oh, with displeasure.
Oh,
That was good. I could feel it. Say, oh, with love.
Oh,
Yeah, like, oh. Say, oh, with anticipation.
oh,
Right? So do you see the different ways that we said, oh? So this is how conflict can sometimes arise, even in text messaging, because if that O is in capital letters, we could take it as, oh, what? Like, oh, why is that capitalized? Like, are you mad? What you trying to say? Right? Text messaging, email, whoo, just by words and how we write them can really say things. So I always, to be careful, I always have to tell people, especially if we're going back and forth, like, you know what? I don't want my text messaging to come across as if I'm upset or you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. Like even with my brother, when I communicate and I put something in caps, it's mean I'm just trying to say like it's anticipation for me. Where for him, it's like, where are you coming from? Like, are you yelling at me? Like, what's up? So it's so funny because for different people, it means different things. And so we just have to be mindful of how, just even when we say something like, oh, for us, it can be one way, but for somebody else, it can come across a whole different way. Does that make sense? So now I want you to just tell me one thing that you can do after today that can foster a restorative culture in your spaces.
for me, I think this whole slide that you just did, incorporating that with my team, um, to make sure that we're all on one page, one accord, and that we're using these tools and practicing them every day in the work that we're doing, especially that active listening, being compassionate, the humility, like one of the first slides that you shared earlier. Um, so just implementing all these different tools and making sure that the team and myself are practicing all this stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I want to talk about, which I didn't, talking piece, right? And talking piece comes way back in our culture, African culture, as a way of allowing someone to have the floor when they're talking. I use the talking piece with my staff when we have meetings, right? Because it allows whoever is talking to talk without being interrupted. And if they don't have anything to say, then they pass it to the next person, right? Because sometimes, especially when we are working together, coming together, people are excited and people have things to say. And if we don't have enough time, the talking piece is really a great way to come in. Also, using a talking piece with your significant other is a great way to eliminate conflict from happening. So even if you all find yourselves having an argument, saying, hey, can we just sit down and talk for a moment? Have a talking piece. A talking piece can be anything. It could be an object, it could be jewelry, it could be a photo, it could be a poem, it could be anything that you bring into the space. And it's just a reminder just to say, hey, I'm here, I'm showing up, and what I have to say is important, what you have to say is important. But when we're doing this, we can't hear one another. But I want you to hold your talking piece while I have mine, and then whoever has the floor can talk. And it works. I do it in my relationships, right? And so it's a great way to keep people calm, cool, collected, without getting all that fired up business happening and getting upset. And again, we're human. It's going to happen. But if it happens, just be mindful of where you feel that in your body, right? Because again, you want to have peace, right? And if it happens, be bold enough to say, whoa, hold up, until we can get to a place where we can bring it down and talk rationally. We need to put this on pause and come back. Because right now, you're not listening and I'm frustrated. And so this isn't working. Okay. Are there any other ways that you can, one thing that you can do to bring restorative work or culture into your space? Well then, as a respected leader and member of your work community, just always remember to use front brain thinking. Watch your tone and your nonverbals. Recognize the traumas, your own, as well as what others may be showing up with. Realistically use the communication and restorative tools that were given. Self-care, always, and then always ask the 3-question rule of, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? And am I the one to say it? And communication is so, so key in resolving conflict. Communicate and know that conflict is healthy if done correctly. Any questions?
I have a
I have a question.
Yes.
Does forgiving translate to forgetting?
Nope. Because you can forgive but not forget.
Forgive and not forget.
Yep, you can forgive, but you won't forget, because you can forgive, but forgetting, so like I like to say, like, you can forgive self, forgive people, but sometimes when people have hurt you, right? And family, the people who are closest to us, they're the ones who hurt us most, right? And sometimes we always have to forgive, right? Family, our children, our parents, our spouse, our significant other, sibling, right? When they hurt us. But sometimes we have to do things from afar for a little bit because we can't forget what they did, right? Sometimes we can. We can put things in the sea of forgetfulness as well as forgive. But I know for me, that there are some people where I have forgiven, but I'm very careful with how I move with them moving forward. Because I you know, I know what happened, and we can change, but we cannot change other people. They have to change for themselves. But I can choose if I want to be around you or not. Any other questions?
Yeah, like the whole like forgiving and forget thing, like you said, I can forgive what someone did, but I can't forget what they did, That's the hardest thing is to like forget it. And sometimes it's a struggle. It's hard to forget what someone may have done or said to you, and that's how you end up with like working relationships with people, kind of there's that disdain, that tension will kind of always be there with that person.
But if you don't forget it, don't let it consume you though, where it's impacting the relationship still.
Yeah.
So when I say forget, it's like one of those things of if someone that you love wants money from you, right? And you borrow them money and they say, I'll pay you back, right? And they don't pay you back. You still love that person, but now moving forward, you're not going to give them money anymore, right?
Yeah.
But you'll hang out with them, you'll love them, whatever. But if they ask you for money, nope, because you remember what they did last time. And so they haven't shown you otherwise. So it's very hard to forget that. But you still, love on that person and be with that person. But, you just have to pick and choose what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. And just one thing that I like to do before I leave spaces is after today, I leave with a greater sense of. After today, I leave with a greater sense of, and you can just verbally say it, and then I will let you go. But thank you so much for having me. This was fun, and I'm truly appreciative of being in your space today. So after today, I leave with a greater sense of, and I'll just go according to my screen. So Leanna.
After today, I leave with a greater sense of ways that I can better show up when navigating conflict. To like start with self more.
Thank you. Nakuli, is it Nakuli?
Yeah, today I leave with a greater sense of holding space for all the unseen things that might be showing up in conflict for me and for the person I'm in conflict with.
Thank you. Journey.
After today, I leave with a greater sense of just knowledge, like the ability to learn more things. And I realize I'm a comforter person. I like comfort. So I sense of self, I guess you would say, but I learned a lot. So greater sense of my character and who I am, and other people's characters and emotions, and being more mindful of what kind of space they are operating from versus just my own. So yeah.
Thank you. Any? Miss Any? Oh, okay.
Conflict is a big deal for me because I am not very outspoken and tend to internalize and
Thank
really greatest thing I get out of this is try to speak up, because talking about it is part of the uh, healing process.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that is what I get out of this, and then understanding that people come into this space with their own load of unspoken concerns that I may not understand. So I'm more prone to forgive because that person is dealing with things that I do not understand, and that I shouldn't take it personal. Okay, that's the statement
Yes.
you use. That I
Yes.
shouldn't take it personal, and I'm going to use that quite a bit.
Okay. For the rest of you, just one word. After today, I leave with a greater sense of Tryla.
It's Trila.
Trila, sorry.
Willingness. I'll say
Love it. Armathian, I'm sorry, honey.
Oh, Amaranthia.
Amaranthia. That's a beautiful name.
Thank you. I guess confidence. Feeling
Confident. Love it. Miss Spears.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Thank you. Anthony. Anthony. Oh,
Yeah, I would say a greater sense of, I don't know, self-awareness, a greater sense of emotions. Two
thank
things,
you.
to be honest with you. Yeah.
Thank you. Ade.
Confirmation.
Thank you. And Jennifer.
Self-awareness.
Thank you. And I leave with a greater sense of community. I appreciate you all. Heal forward and be well. Thank you so much.
We still have Miss Claire too, if you want to share Miss Claire.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Miss Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Claire. One word. Yes.
Oh, self-empowerment.
Oh, love it. Love it, love it, love it. So did you take hosting back from me? Because I shared my screen.
Yeah, you were the co-host, so Liana.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
All
I'll leave. Thank you so
right,
much.
thank you so much. Thank you, Kaufman.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Since we have 5 minutes or so until our break, wondering if maybe we can just take a minute just to like process, and maybe if there's any extra things we want to name before going into that, we can do that. But let's just take like 2 minutes just to settle and process, and then we'll do a little large group discussion before going into our break. So 2 minutes stretch break. Right. Hope you were able to get a little stretching in. Just wanted to give us the last few minutes if there were anything that folks still wanted to share, maybe just thoughts that you had around this morning, things that are coming up for you that you'd like to lift up in the large group. Just wanted to hold some space for that briefly before we move into our break. Yep, Claire and Amaranthia, feel free.
Hey, I just wanted to respond to Nika before we went into the meeting, when she was talking about how she was feeling so down about doing all that work and not, not seeing the results she had hoped to see. And I just wanted to say it to her that, we totally understand, because we had done a lot of work with our project in the beginning to reach out to Black folk, and we weren't getting any response, and we had to make a big change in the middle of our show last year, and change it over to BIWAP, because we were specifically targeting Black women folk, and it didn't happen, and that made us feel really, really down. But we didn't, because we had a show to do, we had to get back on track. So we just kind of turned it around really quickly and changed our approach, and then it worked out.
We still got Black artists.
And we still got Black artists, but sometimes when we realize, sometimes when you're working with the Black community, sometimes it could be very difficult because of all the stuff that they're bringing with them and the stuff we're bringing with us. And I just thought what you said was very powerful, and I just wanted to say just thank you for what you're doing, and keep going.
Thank you. Anyone else, one last thought they'd like to share before we transition? And we can continue these conversations also in our afternoon breakouts as well. All right, well, if not, let's take our break and be back at 12:25. So feel free to, come back. Okay.
We'll have Lavasha, who is the manager for the Open Road Fund, kind of talking about how what engagement look like. And for folks that don't know, the Open Road Fund is essentially giving out $50,000 to those that are enslaved from those descendants of those that were enslaved in Minnesota, North and South Dakota for the next 8 years. And so she's one of the folks working on that project. And so she's going to be talking about community engagement when we come back at 12:25.
Thanks. All right, I'll pause the recording.
All right, thanks, Aini.
I'm here.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, hopefully more people come back. Thanks, Claire and wow, Amaranthia, sorry about that. So hopefully more people kind of come in as we get started, but we're gonna move ahead. I'm really happy that we have Lavasha here today. Lavasha was part of cohort 2, and is part of the Open Road Fund. So Lavasha is a mother, daughter, sister, and friend. She currently serves as the program manager for the Open Road Fund at Nexus Community Partners. Lavasha is excited about the idea of wealth building within the Black and Brown community. She's specifically passionate about communities of color owning their labor, building generational wealth, and highlighting the uniqueness and beauty in the ways they cooperate. Lavasha is committed to challenging the standards of capitalism and the traditional ways of working. Outside of work, she is a mother to a beautiful Black teenage boy. They enjoy joking, watching movies, battle rapping each other, and traveling. In addition, Lavasha also enjoys spending time with her family, eating mostly chocolate, and taking a good long nap. Happy to have you here, Lavasha, and yeah, the space is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here. It's so nice outside. So I was like, I wish I could sit outside and do this work, but I can't. So I'm excited to meet with you all. I wonder if people can go around and like introduce themselves briefly, just so I can know who's in the room. And then I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of background about like Open Road Fund, our community engagement process, and then hopefully get to hear a little bit about your community engagement process, or like plans and thoughts about that around your cooperative. So whoever wants to go.
Hi, my name is Tanika Fierce, and sorry, you might hear my granddaughter in the background. She just came. um, we are the Black Black Broadband Coalition, and our co-op is centered around internet and connectivity and making it reliable, affordable, and equitable.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
I'm just gonna ask that the person that went just pass it to someone so that we can move.
Hey, I'm Trila.
Oh no,
Oh, go
please
ahead. I'm
Trila.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Trila. I'm with Twin Cities Impact Cooperative. We are a home and community-based service provider for people with disabilities. And right now we're offering transportation, meal delivery, and chore services.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Turner. I'm also with Twin Cities Impact Cooperative. Dawn Shirley just introduced us. So.
I can go next.
Okay.
My name is Lashana, and I am the founding director of Journey. Journey is a life skills program for at-risk youth. I designed a workshop called 8 Steps to Promotion, and my cooperative idea is to turn our life skills program, our life skills workshop, 8 Steps to Promotion, into a digital content versus a face-to-face after-school program and workshop for youth. We want to turn into a digital platform so that it's available throughout the country and even overseas.
Nice.
I'm Clement. I'm part of Family Broadband Coalition Cooperation or Cooperative, not corporation. We are trying to start up an internet cooperative by us and for us, the Black and Brown community, to create the quality that we deserve and encourage our people in science too. So that is what we are about. I'm with Tamika Fears.
Ade, would you like to introduce yourself? Anyone else? Ms. Claire and our Amaranthia.
Hi, this is Claire. Amaranthia is making lunch. We're a grassroots organization called Sister Creators Rising. We our mission is to help marginalized women and marginalized genders gain accessibility and visibility through the arts to facilitate personal healing. We are not cooperative. We discovered that as we've done this work, this fellowship, but we do have cooperative aspects to our that we embody in our organization. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Hey, Anthony, we're just doing some introductions if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. My name's Anthony. I am with a cooperative called Twin Cities Impact, and we are looking to serve the broader metro area as far as disability services for adults with physical and mental health issues as well. And we are also starting a Meals on Wheels service as well for the elderly in the community.
Ms. Jennifer and Ade, I think you're the last ones left.
I introduced myself. But I will again. So I'm Jennifer Turner. I'm with Twin Cities Impact. And Anthony just kind of cleared it up for us, and Trilla did too. We are offering mental health services, home health care services for people that are disabled in the community.
And Ade, I'm not sure if you're here or can hear us, but we can also make space elsewhere if that's okay with you, Lavasha.
Yep. Okay, well, thanks for everybody introducing themselves. I may ask for names again, making sure that I have that pronounced right. So if I don't, feel free to correct me. I am going to share a presentation with you all, just giving you some background, try to do as high level as I can. It's a lot of pieces to the program, but trying to give you a high level of like Open Road Fund in general, kind of who we serve, and then talk a little bit more about our community engagement process. So for those of you who came in a little bit after, again, my name is Lavasha. I'm with the Open Road Fund here at Nexus, and I'm the program manager. And I'll explain a little bit about our roles here in just a second after, once we get into the presentation. Alrighty, and I think, am I sharing? I think I asked Leona to share from, thank you, because multitasking, trying to do that is not going to work for me. You can go to the next slide. So this is the Open Road Fund team right now. We're comprised of about 5 people. So we have Danielle Nkali, who is a senior director of the Community Wealth Building department here at Nexus Community Partners. Myself, the program manager, I focus mainly on the community engagement side of things. We have our grants manager, Duaba, who focuses more on the grant application and evaluation process. We also have a Shireen, who helps support the program as well, doing some of the community engagement work in admin. And then we have Olivia, who also helps support with the grant evaluation as well. Next slide. So in this work, and we'll talk about this process too a little bit, we have an advisory committee as well that we work with. So we are very much, we're staff, but we very much partner with a lot of different people in community to do this work as well. And we'll talk about why that's important in a little bit. If you guys have questions, I'll try to do my best to like pause in between sections, but if you want to write them down or pop them in the chat as well, you can do that too. So I'll leave time for like Q&A as well, just as a buffer. But we have an advisory committee. Our advisory committee right now, we have, you'll see 12 folks here. We have 11 right now, and they are from all over the region of Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, in which the Open Road Fund, that's the service area of who we serve. They're from all different backgrounds, from like artists, from organizers, folks that own their own business, elders, financial coaches. We have them like all over, from all over. So that's a little bit about our advisory committee. They also helped us to do things like name the fund, come up with some of our Black wealth definition, which we'll read in a little bit. They also help us determine like grant amounts, give us feedback on our community engagement process. So they're really a part of the process just as much as the staff. And we do meet with them once a month to kind of go over what the program looks like and like how we can make changes. Next slide. So Yates Creative is our organization that is in the Bay Area. They helped us with our graphics. So you'll see the colors and things like that, different graphics that you'll see throughout the presentation today. They helped us with that. And they also helped us with our communications, creating some of our guiding principles, our forward narrative, and like how we engage with the community from a communication side. So this is the folks at Yates Creative who we work with. So what is Open Road Fund? So Open Road Fund is a grant program at Nexus Community Partners that specifically focuses on giving money to Black folks, so Black individuals and or groups in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And we really aim to help folks build wealth. So it's a grant program, goes directly to individuals. It doesn't go to other organizations for them to re-grant it, but it'll go directly to, to the folks that are awarded the grants. So grants right now as it stands, and it'll probably stay this way, is $50,000. It's a one-time grant. So if you do get the grant, you're awarded the grant, you can only apply and get it one time. If you don't get it, you can apply throughout the next 7 years. So the program right now, as it's designed, is supposed to be an 8-year program. And we plan to serve at least 100 folks each year with a total of 800 residents throughout the region. So a little bit about the history and kind of like why Open Road Fund. So back in 2021, the Bush Foundation announced that they were going to give $100 million to communities of color to create a community trust fund. So originally we were Community Trust Fund, Black Community Trust Fund, if you've heard of that. $50 million was going to a Black organization, and then $50 million was going to go to an Indigenous organization. The Indigenous organization is located in South Dakota, and they are called NDN Collective. We also do work with them and do evaluation work and kind of compare our programs as well to see like how we're serving community, but their program is different in how you apply and get the award as well. Once Bush announced that they were going to be giving away the money, Nexus gathered Black staff in the organization and talked about if they wanted to apply for the fund. Once they agreed that they wanted to apply for the money, they went through this rigorous application process and was eventually awarded as the steward of the Open Road Fund. We still communicate with our Black Staff Assembly with inside of Nexus as well to get feedback on like application, community engagement strategies, things like that, and just keeping them updated and in the loop. So they're still a part of the work as well. So then after that was announced, Nexus applied. They were awarded the stewards, so not given the money yet, but awarded the stewards. We immediately began to grow the program and grow that program design. So we began hiring staff, which me and Danielle were like the first 2 staff for the Open Road Fund. And then we began to like build a team from there. We began designing the program with our advisory committee, bringing them on board like right away to making sure that we're not making decisions about the funds without the community say so. I think one of the unique things that I forgot to say about the advisory committee is that we didn't want to just lean on community leaders that you would traditionally see. We really wanted to do a call out for applications for all folks. So that way the advisory committee reflects the people that we're trying to serve in our community. So it's not just everyday, like, CEO, the people that you always see. We wanted to be very like community based. We also work with, and I'll talk about too in a little bit, Research in Action, for those of you who are familiar with Dr. Brittany Lewis's work. And they help us do our evaluation work and our research as well. What else? So then we began designing the program. We did that design with community. Took us about a year kind of like to do that initial program design and grant program. And then we officially launched the first application period last year on Juneteenth. So then after we announced the program, I think that we did like a 6-week application period. And after that, we did another maybe 6-week review period with the applications. And then by the end of 2023, we awarded 99 individuals awards. And then this year, since we did 99 last year, we'll do 101 this year since one person dropped out. Next. So we use the word Open Road Fund, but I wanted to give you all some background on like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? So our NGM, or this is where it came from. So as you can look a little bit closer, this is our logo, or our glyph is what we call it. And you'll see in the middle, it kind of looks like 3 people in the middle. And it's the idea that we all define Black wealth differently. We're all on different paths towards liberation. And I'll just kind of read a little bit about like what that means and how we came upon the name. So one of the stories in the glyphs is that life consists of many paths. All paths lead to our destiny, but some are longer than others. What we should want for one another is the most effective path to our destinies. We want for one another a blessed journey from birth to creation. So it's the idea that our ancestors have paved the way for us, and that we're all on our different journeys for wealth building, and that we can walk alongside each other to build wealth. So that's kind of why we named it Open Road Fund. That the paths are opened up from our ancestors for us to be able to kind of create our own paths forward. Next slide. So our Black wealth definition, I think the group is maybe a little bit quiet. I don't know, but if people wanted to come help read, because it is a long definition. So before I read the definition, the background of this is, and what you'll hear throughout, community engagement for us was a part of like the beginning of the process and almost every process and how we shape the program. So what we did was work with Research and Action in our advisory committee to come up with a baseline idea of like how we define Black wealth, knowing that it's not monolithic, knowing that it can mean different things for different people. We came up with a baseline idea, and then we created a community wealth building survey. And then we asked community, what do you think Black wealth is? What's missing from this definition? Does it resonate with you? And that's kind of how we came up with this bigger idea of how we define Black wealth with Open Road Fund. Does anybody want to read it, or I just gonna give you guys a few? I can read it too, but if anybody wanted to read this first paragraph.
I can read it. It says, Black wealth liberates us from dependency on a culture of anti-Blackness that robs Black people of our creativity. Attaining Black wealth is a self-determined process of 1, restoring what has been stolen from us, and 2, rebuilding our communities. By reclaiming our ancestral birthright, we seek restoration. Our ancestral knowledge and familiar connections have been taken from us. Through healing, we restore our most sacred traditions rooted in family, love, and community. This enables us to take control of our minds, bodies, and souls and forge a path of self-determination.
Thank you. Can you go to the next slide? There's one more, one more slide for the definition. So I'll just read the rest. So thanks for reading that. By reclaiming sovereignty over our lives, we rebuild our communities. We seek the freedom to strengthen our connection to the land and take control of what we produce, build, or invent. We seek to enrich the next generation by gaining new tools and knowledge to build and resource new institutions. This allows us to creatively assert what the quality of life we deserve and what we need to achieve it. Black wealth is, but not limited to, healing from over 5 centuries of labor and livelihoods stolen from us on this stolen land. Black wealth is owning what we produce. Black wealth is building and inventing our families and community. Black wealth is creative and sovereign practice of restoration that reaffirms the excellence that has always been in us. So a lot of the work that we do is based on our Black wealth definition, and as well as our guiding principles, which can be also seen as like what we value within the program. So as a high level, we really value healthy and healing spaces and practices, inclusive economy, economic stability and growth, collective care, self-determination, and intergenerational education. Give you guys a couple seconds to read that over, and then we can go to the next slide. We can go to the next slide. So before we talk about like our community engagement process and some of like the tangible ways that we've engaged with community, anybody have any questions just about that part of the background? Okay. I forgot to talk about eligibility too. So the eligibility right now, and it could change, is that you have to live within the region, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, be at least 14 years of age or older, and then identify as Black, African descendant of slaves. So those are like the top 3 criteria that we look for when we're looking for like eligibility. So how we define community engagement. So the goal of the Open Road Fund community engagement work and Nexus in general is not only to engage and inform Black communities, but actively work alongside community. Can you go to the next slide? So research and action has been helping us, as I said, kind of coming along. We really value working with them because they really understand, like, you know, what community is. They also understood how to work well with advisory committees in general. So that's why we decided to partner with them in doing this work. That they are a Black-led organization. Most of the organizations that we work with, we try to make sure that we censor like Black-led organizations to do this work with. And then local as much as possible. And so they've also helped us they're also doing a longitudinal study. So they helped us create the 5 wealth building themes. They helped us come up with the name. They helped us come up with the community surveys to get feedback with the community. And they're also going to be doing a longitudinal study. And I believe it's the first 2 years of awardees. So they're going to be creating focus groups to get feedback on like where the awardees started when they first received the money, and then they're going to follow them throughout the full 8 years to see like what that looks like, and then what the impact of the program is, to be able to like share with community and other funders. So hopefully we can continue this work and like see what that overall impact is. We're also right now working on putting together a public report that'll go out probably in the next couple of weeks here by the end of April, to give folks an idea of like the demographics of the people that we've chosen, the different areas that they chose to spend the money on, like their grants, and kind of give the public a little bit better idea of like, you know, what was that whole process for that full year based on who was awarded the money. All right, so some of our community engagement strategies, which is not an exhaustive list, but some of the things that we've done, like I've already mentioned, our community engagement is our Open Road Fund Committee. We've also done some visioning sessions. And again, this is kind of visioning with the community, like, what do you think Black wealth is in addition to those surveys? We know not everybody's going to take a survey, you know, everybody has access or time for a survey. So we really wanted to make sure that we engage with community more closely, especially within like the Dakotas, because we're not there physically. But we wanted to make sure we reached out to folks out there. So we did some visioning sessions on like what that could mean and what that could look like. And then that helped us shape our wealth building themes. We also have done some one-on-ones, and we'll continue to do the one-on-ones, talking to different community leaders or organizers to see how we can provide either technical assistance to folks, how they can provide resources for like computers or internet so that folks can apply for the grant, and then be able to get the word out about the fund. What else? Focus groups. So we typically once a year do focus groups, a couple of different focus groups on like, what can we change in the application? How does the application feel to you? And then we don't only do this with community folks that are applying, but we also do it with like practitioners, like mental health practitioners, people that work with like disability justice, things like that. So we can make sure that the application is like accessible and also that it's meeting the needs of our community. And so all those feedback is important to our process as well. We also have the ability for folks to submit a video recording if they like have some type of impairment, or if they're just not good with words, and I mean like typing, so they can do that as well. That's an option for our application. And then we also have the application and sign as well. So that's an option as well. We have ongoing community information sessions about like what kind of similar to what I'm doing now, like what is Open Road program? How can you apply? What does the application look like? And then we also recently have been having our community education series. And this is based on the fact that we want the Open Road Fund to not only be a grant program, right? But we want our outreach and community engagement to kind of go beyond that. Like how else are we engaging with community aside from the grant? What if you apply and you don't get it, but you want to stay connected? So we decided to do some community education series to where we can explore like the different areas of Black wealth. So I mentioned it before, but I don't think I named it. The 5 wealth building themes are individual and financial well-being, education, housing and shelter, health and healing, and economic ownership and power. So those are like the 5 main areas that came out of that big definition survey. And we focus on these education sessions once a month to kind of pull together a panel, pull together community, and kind of talk about these different topics and talk about, what this looks like within our Black community, talk about the history of that, and then how we can move forward and continue to build wealth within those things. And then we're also working on getting a community resource list together for folks so that they can be able to access technical assistance providers that can continue to work with them on their business plan, or if they wanted to buy a house, or if they wanted to do some, health and healing, like where are those places that we can go that we feel safe as a Black community. So I'm gonna pause before I talk about challenges and changes. Any questions for that? Okay. And then feel free to, I'm gonna try to look at the chat too. Feel free to use the chat as well. So if you guys want to just kind of give comments and stuff in the chat as well, that's fine. So some of the challenges or changes, of course, not all, but the big things that we've noticed from like the first year of the grant to this year is that we want to continue to build those partnerships and to have those available to community. We want to continue to build application support so that whether that's getting materials to people so that they can have their own application parties, we want to be able to do that. And when I say application party, I mean like a group of folks getting together and doing an application together. We don't want it to feel like, it has to be secretive or you have to hide your ideas. You can be as discreet as you want to be, but we really want to make sure that it's like a community collective process. And if you want to come together and do it, to feel more encouraged and to get other feedback or to bounce ideas off each other, you guys can do that as well. Of course, there's like some improvements to like accessibility. How do you access the application, and like how long is it? Like, does that, like those different things, different feedback that we got from community about trying to think of something big that we reflected on this year. I think the length of time to be able to do the application was like a big feedback that we got. So we're trying to figure out like, how do we make it short and sweet, but also meaningful? Because we don't want it to feel like you're applying for like public benefits and it's all these hoops you have to go through and all this, proof that you have to provide, but we also want it to be meaningful where you're like learning something along the process. But then we also don't want you to feel like you're like just like pouring your heart out, but then you still don't get the grant, because that doesn't feel good as well. And we'll talk about that in a minute. More communication on the grant process. So just being more visible so folks know what it is, know that it's coming up. We are in year 2 now. So how do we continue to engage folks throughout the year so people know what it is and know what Open Enroll Fund is when they hear it? Talked about visibility, and then like negative community feedback. That's something to really consider. I think that like one of the things that I'll say is like, this is a thing, it's gonna happen. People are not always gonna be happy with the results of a program. There's always gonna be feedback. And the one thing I appreciate about our team is that we're willing to take that feedback and make those changes. In addition, with saying that, we can't change everything all the time, but we do try our best to make sure that we're transparent with the process. But just being prepared for like negative feedback, because we are also Black individuals doing this work and carrying this. And at the end of the day, we still have to say no to some people. And that doesn't always feel good. So just like when you're doing your cooperative ideas, just making space for each other, like keeping each other well, keeping yourself well, and knowing that, you're doing it with the best intentions. So just anticipating that negative community feedback, and doing something better with it, because all feedback is good feedback, but sometimes it stings as well, because we're people as well. So how do we give that feedback and take that feedback without like taking it personal? Because sometimes it's just like, triggering for folks, or, you'll get feedback about like, oh, I had to pour my heart out. And it's like, yeah, that's true. We want to hold that with you. But at the same time, we don't want to like take it personal, because it could just be things that are triggering. Like Black folks are always applying for grants and don't get it, right? Or we're always applying for things we don't feel like we get it. So some of the feelings and feedback can be coming from some of those things as well. So that is what I have. I feel like I talked a lot. I have some activity for us to do, but before we do it, I want to pause.
Okay. Should I stop sharing screen then? Or do you need me to stop sharing the
you can.
presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Will round 2 of it be like the lottery drawing, like the first round was?
Yeah, thanks for asking that and bringing that up. So we do use a randomization process where we have a computer system to where we randomly pick folks. So yes, the randomization process will be the same as last year. I'm not sure. It maybe we'll still be using the randomization process and where we randomly pick folks, but I can't remember, like it was some type of change about that was going on, and maybe Duaba knows more about that. But what that is basically so that we can eliminate bias and not compare like applications against each other. We didn't want the reviewers to like look at the applications and say, oh, this person is more worthy. There are some people that are like great grant writers or that have been applying for stuff, and we didn't want that person to get over another person that might not have that experience. And so that's why we chose to do like the randomization process, so that we're not like pitting people against each other, but we're actually like randomly selecting folks. And then with that, we are still reading the responses. So it's not like we're just picking them and then like you get it. We are still reading them and giving feedback. But that initial pool will pull like the initial 100 people, and then we'll review those applications. Any other questions or feedback?
Is the fund this year still open to groups too?
Yep. So it is up to groups of 5. So you all have to work on like one general idea. It can't be 5 different ideas. It has to be like one idea similar to the cooperative. You guys are all working on a cooperative together. Most of you have groups, some of you have ideas, that's fine as well, but eventually you'll cooperate with somebody. And I know one group said that they were in a cooperative, but they do it collectively. So you have to work on a collective idea when you apply as a group of 5. It can be you and your 5 children. It can be you and other folks in the community, as long as they're all eligible for the fund. If you have others in your group to where you have a big cooperative and maybe all of you aren't eligible, the people that are eligible will get the fund. So it'll all still be $50,000 to each person. So a group can apply and get that max amount, or you can apply as an individual and just get that individual amount. Okay, I'm gonna leave it open for questions, but I wanted to, and I know that when I was looking at like who's in the room today, I know that some of you are like individually here, but I wanted to see if it was possible for us to like do breakout rooms based on like your cooperative group. So if you are here with your group, maybe that can be a room. And then if you're not, like pairing folks up to talk a little bit more like what does the community engagement process look like within your cooperative. And then I have a Jamboard that I can share with you all, and it has questions, like 4 questions on there that you guys can like generate ideas. If that's feasible, or we can just do it as large group, but.
Yeah, I think we can create like 3 co-op groups. So Twin Cities Impact, Black Broadband Coalition, and then Amaranthia, Claire, Nashana, and Ajay. So, okay, cool. I'll do that.
So yeah, we'll go in a room. How much? I don't even know how much time I got left. And we'll go in a room for maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, we can.
4 questions related to community engagement. Some of you may have done this already. Feel free to pop those answers on there. Some people haven't thought about it or haven't gotten that far, and that's okay too. But it's just to get you thinking about like, how am I going to engage community? Who my community is for my cooperative idea, and then we'll come back and then share like high level feedback based on that.
Okay. Sorry, did you say you had a Jamboard too?
I put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Does everyone see it? The rooms are ready. So whenever you're ready, Lavasha, let me know and I'll open.
Everybody know how to use Jamboard. I always forget that too.
I'll pop in the rooms as
Okay.
well. Okay,
All
cool.
right. Go ahead and open them up.
Amaranthia and Claire, is there anything like this happening in New Hampshire? Because I feel like there are sort of like reparative funds popping up I know for sure in California, in some spaces, but is there anything similar or like this happening in the East Coast?
Yeah, in New Hampshire, not so much. There is a fund we just
Discovered one.
and it wasn't advertised or anything. We just found it in a Facebook group that's called like Black Women in New Hampshire, and it was just like some kind of, I think it's like New Hampshire Women's Foundation, but they had a segment that's for women, and people in the group were like, we didn't know this existed. And the person who is in charge of it is a older white woman, but so because there's still so much a massive issue with diversity and on boards and stuff, but she was we reached out to her and she was like, yeah, I really want to find ways to support you. So we've been here 16 years. I had no idea that was a thing. It seems recent. So I'm like, okay, well, at least they're making an effort. But other than that, the grants here from the Arts Council are like, they always go to white older artists. And they're not really accessible. So when we apply for grants, it's usually in Boston because Massachusetts Cultural Council, they have a program that's specifically targeting artists of color, and they helped us a lot. So,
okay,
but that's about it.
yeah, thanks for sharing.
Okay, are we all back?
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody want to share aloud like any of the things that you all are doing for community engagement, and or still time for like questions about the community engagement process in general? But
one of the things that we do is we table a lot at different community events. And one thing I did forget that my cohort reminded me of is we do surveys. So whenever we engage with someone, we have our tablet out and say, can we ask you a couple brief questions? And we've gotten a lot of good feedback that helped shape our co-op. So I think that's a really good idea, is getting feedback. It also lets people know who you are, what you're doing. And if it's short and if they don't have to write, we found that if we ask the questions and type them in, they are more willing to do that. We also ask for an email address. So that can also help you build an email list. So that's important, because that piece that's another way that you can engage the community so that you can send them out updates and things like that.
thank you. I know that me and Akuli kind of talked about it. And something that you mentioned was like the strategy of like how to engage with Black and Brown communities. And something for us, I think that's important, is like, we don't want to always do like the traditional ways. Like there's a certain way that you have to collect data from Black folks in certain spaces that you need to be in to do that. So we're really big on like going into like the barbershops, like that's our plan, our long-term, like we want to go into those spaces that, people like frequently migrate that you wouldn't traditionally go into, or like you said, like typing up the answers for them as opposed to them having them to like fill it out, or even like how we I know Duwaba spent a lot of time making sure like the language of the application was at a certain level for like people to understand it, but then also making sure like it was like short and sweet and like to the point, not too many words, but like trying to make sure that we are like really strategic about like how we're giving the information and then how we're receiving feedback. And then most of anything that we do with community engagement, whether it's like a focus group or focus group or things like that, where we're actively getting feedback from people, we always pay them. Some people have that in the budget, some people don't, but we want to provide some type of incentive, because we don't want to just like extract the information from you and then like, okay, here we go, we're building our program. But we want to make sure that like your time and your opinions are valuable as well. So we always pay folks or incentivize them in some way to make sure that, they feel seen and heard as well. And then being able to like share that feedback of like how we used your information. How is this going to be used and how has it shaped our program? So that those are like some important pieces I wanted to uplift as well.
You know, that's one thing we do have a summit every year. And one thing that we do is we offer transportation, we offer food, and we also give gift cards to Target because we, like you said, we want to honor people's time and their knowledge because the community brings a lot of knowledge. And so we decided that as we were building, we wanted to build with the community. And so we try to engage them, have them come in and volunteer with us at events and things that we do so that their voice is always heard in what we're doing because we started this because of our community.
Yeah. And that transportation piece is big. So knowing those barriers of the community that you're serving too, and like how can you help to navigate that? Any other groups or individuals want to share about their community engagement?
So Jennifer shared that she went to a health fair recently, and she has information regarding like upcoming health fairs and stuff like that. So my position, I'm a coordinator for a company other than our co-op, and we are community engagement specialists, but our job is to like take people with disabilities out into the community and do different activities with them to get them comfortable with being in the community. So we take them to like places like the library and the zoo, different art institutions, art galleries, and stuff like that, and just get them comfortable with being out in the community. And I mean, that's huge for them because they don't really get out a lot, especially not the ones who live in group homes and stuff like that. So, but lately I have not been engaging in the community for the cooperative, but just hearing that Jennifer's been to health fairs, I'm thinking like maybe visiting more job fairs and talking to people and just getting the community familiar with who we are, and finding out more about who they are and what they're offering, just finding resources. So I feel like community engagement is something that I could do more for the cooperative.
Thank you for sharing. Any last minute thoughts? I know I think I'm going over, but I do want to honor if other people have things they want to share or ask. Okay, I will read just a couple off the Jamboard. So entrance and exit surveys, going to community events, suggestion jars, conferences, doing some tabling, weekly meetings and discussion with employees about outcomes of what's working and what's not, a lessons learned meeting with our team and our sponsors, artist feedback surveys, team surveys, and audience surveys, sharing lists of lessons learned publicly. So those are some good ideas and some ways you can stay engaged. I think it's important to always remember like who the audience is, and kind of like remember the why and like going back to that, because we go back to our definition a lot in our 5 well-put-in things to make sure that like we're aligning, with what we said we were going to do, and kind of lean on our advisory committee to kind of keep us in check on like making sure that we are doing what we need to do for the community and letting them like drive that process, as opposed to us coming in with our own agenda to be like, we know what the community needs, but like really sitting and listening, and being in those spaces that you might not traditionally be in, but just listen to what the community needs and letting them tell us kind of, what they need out of the program. That's all I got, unless there's any other questions.
And when can folks expect round 2? More information about round 2?
So for this year, we are doing another round, Juneteenth. So to open again on Juneteenth, I'm not sure if it's going to be 6 weeks or I don't know what the timeline is, but you'll have a couple weeks to be able to fill out the application. You can save it and come back to it. It's not like you have to kind of go through it. Once you submit it, it's submitted, but you can go through and do that at your own time. And it doesn't matter if you do it on the first day or the last day, as long as you get it in before like the deadline.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
I heard you say when I think Nikuli asked about can groups apply,
Mhm.
and you said that we have to stick. They had to stick to one theme, and so individually, is there a theme to this? And I think because one of the things I heard from people that I had applied was kind of confusion around like what actually is wanted as far as is there a theme? It's because I think a lot of people that I knew that I was trying to help through it were just like all over the place.
Yeah.
And so what is the central thing that you guys look for and you want people to focus on, as far as, because the questions are kind of different in a way, so I'm trying to understand how it can be themed is, I guess, my question.
Yep, and I think some of the questions might change just based on community feedback. But for the most part, we're looking for those same things as you would imply as an individual. So like we have the 5 wealth building things that you can choose from. So if you're applying for health and wellness, for example, that's a theme that we want your idea to align around. We're looking to make sure like you're going to be building wealth with it. You're not harming the Black community. There's one other type like theme on like how we look at it. And it's slipping my mind. But we just want to make sure that like whatever theme that you choose, and it's not limited to say that you only have to use the funds on that thing or that your idea might not change, right? But we do want you to kind of focus on like to making sure that groups are aligned in what they say they want to do. They're applying for health and wellness, and then they're kind of giving us an idea on like what that actually looks like and how that's going to help build Black wealth for you all as a group and then the community in general. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So if a group of 5 is chosen, they each get 50,000?
Yep, they each get 50,000 towards that group idea. And again, if you do say you have children in the home and they're eligible, they meet all the criteria, they can apply as well. You can apply as a family, that can be considered a group. And it doesn't have to be I'm starting a business. Again, it can be under education, it can be and again, we define that as, I'll send you guys the themes too, because we don't define any of the themes traditionally. So education can look different for each person, but like having a central idea of like how you plan to do that. Or if I want to buy a home or buy a building together, how can we get our resources together and do that? So just kind of having it, make sure it's aligned with your group.
So after the people are selected, I'm just calling it lottery drawing. I forgot. Random selection process. Okay. What does the second phase look like, if I'm even able to ask that question?
Yep, you can. Yep. So once we the random selection process chooses the 100 folks to move into like phase 2, it's really like a more in-depth detailed like application. So the first part is seeing, are you eligible, giving us a general idea of like what you wanted to do. The second part is, okay, tell us more about your idea. And then we call it like a wealth building plan of like how it's more like in detail. You're telling us what in the first part, was seeing if you're eligible. The second part is like why, and then how are you going to have what supports are you going to have in place? How are you going to see this plan out? And then like a general idea on like what a budget could look like for this idea.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have some info sessions coming up to talk more about the application and kind of walk through. I think one of the things we want to do this year is like walk through an application with people and like put that up on the website, like a mock one, so people can actually like see what it looks like and like how to go through some of the questions. So that could be a thing this year as well. All right. right, thank you. If you guys have questions, I forgot to put it, but I'll put it in the chat, our email. So if you guys do have more questions about the fund or things that are coming up, feel free to reach out. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lavasha. Thank you
Yeah.
for being here.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Lasha, have a good one.
Thanks.
All right. Wondering, wanted to do a little bit more small group stuff, but maybe taking like another 2 minute. I don't know. I feel like that might be nice, a little 2 minute break, and then maybe a pair share situation. Just reflecting on this morning and this afternoon, in pairs or groups of 3, and then coming back just to close out. So let's take 2 minutes, 1:35, and then we'll this if it does. But they are what's coming up for you from today's session. What are some tools and strategies you hope to use in your cooperative groups related to conflict resolution and community engagement? What questions do you still have or ideas you want to explore more? So we're gonna just reconfigure these rooms real quick. Give you about 10 minutes to do that pair share, and then maybe a brief share back before we close out. So let's see here, just one moment. Okay, so there's gonna be 2 groups of 3 and 1 pair. So we'll take 10 minutes, coming back at 1:46. The rooms are open now for you to join. And then we'll close. All right, we're just waiting for a few more folks to join us back in the main room. All right, I think that's everyone. Yeah. All right, welcome back. Wanting to just make space if anyone wants to share what they talked about in their small groups / pair shares for a few minutes, and then we'll get into our closing.
I'm going to talk.
Sure.
When we are doing the conflict resolution, I never expanded my thoughts to outsiders. And in my group, I was able to understand that the conflict is not just within the organization, it could be, bypassers, fellow, neighbor businesses, or even the, maybe inspector driving by and observe something, that there should be a clear method of communication to get to someone, a decision-making person, to hear their concerns and address it. So it's not just, employees or founders or board members or anything like that. It's internal and external. I think that's a good idea, because issues don't just come from inside. Issues can come from outside that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Aini. Let's see, is there anyone else from that group want to share any thoughts? Or we can move on to another group.
Sure. I'll just reiterate kind of what Amy was saying. In our group, we were just talking about like how I understood what the last presenter was stating was, making sure that your organization has an internal and external way of addressing, feedback, making sure that, your website has a contact or an email somewhere where you can give feedback. If you have a brick and mortar, have it on the wall or somewhere where, you can give feedback, and it's kind of like best practices for your business. And we were talking about how feedback is not just, and not feedback, but conflict resolution is not only internal. So having a conflict resolution process for your staff or your members of the co-op, but having a conflict resolution process and procedure for external feedback processes, such as making sure that the general public, people who are not your direct customers or direct people that you are giving services to, so not just for them. And the example that I used was, if you're a business or a co-op and you have a brick and mortar and there's a business right next door. So Annie said, well, is the conflict resolution process externally just for the customers and people that you service? And I said it can also be for others as well. For example, if you have a brick and mortar and there's a business that's located right next door to you, and your business has 2 parking spaces and your customers or people you're serving are taking up more than those 2 spaces, you want to make sure that your website or your store or something has information on how they can reach you in the event that somebody wants to complain and tell you, hey, your business is taking up more than the parking spaces. That is considered like an external conflict. That's not like a particular customer or a person that you're servicing through your business, for example. So that's kind of what I took from conflict resolution internally and externally. And that's kind of what Amy was just talking about that we discussed in the group.
Thank you. Let's see. Amaranthia, Claire, and Tanika, any brief comments you'd like to share from your discussion?
Yeah, we agreed that this was best session for us. With the trauma and conflict restoration and stuff, and
down that everyone's doing better. The economy's humming right along.
hello.
Oh, wait, what was that? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You didn't have.
Yeah, and we were talking about the 3 points that were a part of it about you don't always have to be the one to say something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other 2?
I think, oh man, I can't remember, but that was a major part.
Yeah, you don't when there's something going on, you don't always have to be the one basically to step up and solve it.
Oh, and you don't always have to, I think the gist of it was like, reacting versus responding.
Yes.
It's like sometimes you don't need to say something in the moment, and
In the
sometimes it
moment.
could be shelved
Mhm.
and brought to the next, like maybe like, hey, let's stop here and have another meeting about it. That was very helpful because I think a lot of people need to do this instead of being like, we need to talk about this right now. Sometimes it's not good to talk about it right now because people's emotions are high and people are like riled up, and it's better to just like, you know, find a maybe in between way of like, okay, well, this is where maybe people can go and submit through this feedback form and take write down their thoughts, and then people could come together. Okay, this is what occurred and this, how are we going to move forward? You know, you could list your comments. And I think just for people, like personally, is like making sure like to reflect on your thoughts and make sure that if you're feeling anger, like sometimes you just need to pause and just like, okay, do I need to say this in this moment? Is this appropriate? I feel like that's what the speaker, I forgot her name, but what she was talking about. Like sometimes you need to just wait a minute and see if it's appropriate for that moment.
Exactly, because sometimes when you say something, it could just go off on
and trigger a whole mess. Yeah.
So we all three of us were pretty much agreeing that was so important that came out from that presentation.
And also talking about how you kind of can see that issue on social media.
Yeah,
that people don't shelve their thoughts. They think they got to overshare. And if they don't like something, they just have to be very loud about it. And so I think, you know what, maybe I should just step back, take a break, maybe just go to the next post, you know, maybe block this person. Maybe I shouldn't interact with this person
we were talking
anymore.
about how we deal with that.
Yeah.
How we deal with when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. Let's see, Ade and Trila, any brief things you'd like to share before we close?
I was just mentioning that I would probably take away the part where she was the first speaker. I forgot her name. I'm sorry.
Rosalind Harmon.
Yep, she was she had the 3 questions up, and I was thinking, you know, am I the person to, you know, address the situation? And, you know, maybe sometimes it's better if something comes from somebody else, because a lot of times people don't want to listen to a certain person, especially if you've been telling them stuff over and over and they're not hearing you, but then they'll hear it better from somebody else. And I was just thinking that that was good. But Ade also said that like speaking up is like she wouldn't take that approach. She was saying that maybe that's who they are. Like if you're addressing a certain issue over and over again with them, maybe that's just has something to do with who they are. And, you know, you probably shouldn't. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking that I don't know. It was a little confusing, but the certain part of it is that there'll always be change and there'll always be conflict. But now I see that there are different ways to approach conflict, more calmer ways, and conflict is very necessary, especially within an organization, because some people just see things tunnel vision and they can't see all areas of the thing that they're approaching, but other people may see it different ways, and it could be better, you know, if you approach it from different angles.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, we're approaching our time here. Thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. I'm gonna just share a few brief announcements. I'm gonna drop the survey link in the chat just so that's there for people to access. These were also in my last email on Thursday, but graduation is approaching. That's on Wednesday, May 15th. And we are putting a call out for our cohort. So within the folks that are in the fellowship this year, a call for artists or performers for graduation. This will be a paid opportunity, 10 minutes performance during the graduation celebration. If you are interested, We just ask you to email us with a short response of why you're interested in being a performer, a short blurb describing your idea for the performance, and 2 to 3 links to artistic work you've created, including a work in progress, and we can review up to 10 minutes. And we just ask that you send those in an email to us by end of day Thursday, April 18th. So if you are interested in being considered, please email us for that opportunity. And this information again is in that email, and I will share that again. We also have our Black Study session coming up on Wednesday, May 1st from 5 to 7 p.m. on Zoom. The theme is Black creativity and collective care. We'll be joined by our colleagues with Root, Reclaiming Our Own Time, as well as Deja Joelle with Body Prayers. And so that is open. You all have the link to join, but please share that with your networks. It's free, open to the public, centering Black people and Black experiences. And this registration link will also be shared with you again for you to send out to folks. And then let's see, lastly, just a quick plug again for the National Conference on the Black Cooperative Agenda, which will be here in St. Paul, June 13th through June 15th. Early bird registration is closing on Monday, April 15th. So if you are interested in registering before that to get that early bird registration, I'm going to pop the link again in the chat. This is also in that email as well. We'll send that again for you to register. And if you have any questions about that, please reach out to us at our North Star email. And those are my announcements. I'm going to pass it to Nupuli.
Yeah, so this is our final official session with content. The next session we have will be presentations, and so it'll be mostly the focus will be on all of you. I know we've met with a few folks and have a few more meetings, but the presentation guide was sent out early, so if you have any questions, let us know. The final session is May 11th. Yeah, May 11th. So you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to sort of present about your cooperative work, and then about 5 minutes for questions, and we'll be joined by either an Nexus staff, 2 Nexus staff and 2 alumni to sort of help steer the process as well and ask questions or give insights. But basically, it's supposed to be a space where you can build on your cooperative work. If there's maybe some aspects of it that you're working on and still want to explore with the group, that's a place. We're not trying to get you to start anything new, just building from whatever you have, and you have the agency to take it wherever you need it to go. We don't have any requirements. So it could be a formal presentation through presentation guide or Prezi, or it could be you storytelling, whatever feels best for you. If you want to sing, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, so that's the last thing. May 11th presentations. We'll send out a schedule ahead of time so you know when you're going, but we hope that everyone can be there to listen to the peers presentations and give feedback as well. But if you won't be here, please let us know ahead of time so we can plan accordingly as well. And yeah, that's the last session, May 11th, and then graduation, and that's it.
All right. Well, the survey link again is in the chat. I just popped it in there again. Please take a few minutes if you can to fill that out. But thank you, everyone. And take care. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and weekend.
Thank you. You too, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Y'all enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.